Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the business end of the ruddy season, where all our teams are being confirmed. But by the end of this video, all of the teams confirmed to phase 2 will be known, and the only things left to decide in next week's video will be the teams that have qualified through their regional LCQs to the major. But without further ado, we'll get cracking with the EUL League. And this was a huge day of Rainbow Six Siege. We saw ITB, the team that I'm a content creator for, going up against Team Secret. The winner of that would qualify for the Manchester Major. BDS up against Wolves. The winner of that qualifies for the Manchester Major. But to start things off, we had G2 up against Fnatic to see who would secure 5th spot and an extra 5 SI points. So the first game of the day in EUL was a pretty back to their best for G2, I've got to say. An impressive 2-0 victory for the boys of G2, confirming 5th place and an extra 5 SI points over Fnatic, with both these teams dropping down into the LCQ, which will be taking place next week. But now we move on to our next game, in which ITB went up against Team Secret. And while the boys of ITB only went and bloody did it, securing themselves a spot in the Manchester Major, the first team, oh, my chair almost broke, the first team inside of EUL to make it through to the bloody Manchester Major. And in one of the rounds, we saw King Kenny, Kendrew rolling back the years with one of the most sneaky ratty 3Ks I've ever seen. So we'll show you that clip, and I'll also show you my reaction to ITB getting the job done against Secret over on Bank.
Now, but the keeper barriers are out there, and drops are coming through. Kendrew is still around. That's an important mark as well. Noah playing underneath the second hatch inside of Archive.
Kenny
so
could
as soon
go
as they would
massive.
go for a drop there, because they're running out of time slowly, he is there to just catch them. So they really have to go aggressive.
Can he
Still don't
go?
know where Kendrew is.
Kenny!
Oh!
Kenny! 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 Oh my fucking god! He's insane! He is insane!
Sprinkles around the corner from trying to get the ace to lock off your spot to go to Manchester as it gets shut down. Miracle in a 1v3. He needs to make that miracle happen if they want to have an opportunity.
Man, he's in the bag. Na 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 na. Man, he's in the bag, in the bag. Man, he's in the bag. Na 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 na. Man, he's in the bag, in the bag. Man, he's in the bag. Na 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 na. Man, he's in the bag, in the bag. Man, he's in the bag. Na 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 na. Man, he's in the bag, in the bag. Man, he's in the bag. They know. Yes! Yes! Come on! Our next game of the day saw BDS smashing Wolves 2-0. And you've got to feel a bit for Wolves. This is the bigger French brother of these two orgs, with Wolves not beating BDS in a single map since they've been in existence. And that trend did indeed continue, with BDS looking truly dominant, and I think a lot of people's favourites to maybe take the Manchester Major, with it especially being in the EU as well. And here's an insane 3K from playday on one of the maps on Clubhouse, where we see Wolves try their classic jacuzzi wall rush. And I tell you what, with the new lineups, playday just rolls them up and smokes the Wolves, as BDS lock themselves as the second team through to Manchester from EUL.
And that's what leaves them with one of the highest defensive win rates in the league at the moment. It's second, funnily enough, to Wolves. We'll see.
I play D&D and I like Warhammer.
Show us that 70% defensive win rate when they get onto the defense in the second half of this. But it could well be that it's already too far gone by then at this rate.
Well,
it's a classic Wolves strat.
Shield getting
Oh!
dropped. Playday with 3-day. See you later. Just locked out on Jacuzzi.
So then we went into our final day of ITB up against BDS to see who would finish top of EUL and get 100 SI points as opposed to 95. And then the other big one was going to be Team Secret or Wolves to see who would be our third team to qualify for the Manchester Major. And well, it was a hell of a tight game and it went to a map 3 as well. But this was the result in the Secret Wolves game. Secret finally came out on top 2-1 up against Wolves. And I have to be honest, I was very close to celebrating very, very early in that game. Big Secret fan here. I've met the boys out in Malta and they're all lovely lads. Everyone on that team's incredible. And I'll play you a clip from me celebrating a little bit too early in one round. But Secret got the job done and will be your third team through to the Manchester Major representing EUL, with Wolves dropping on down into the LCQ that will be played next week. Time for Adrian to come alive a bit. Get in there. It's all Team Secret. Inject it into my veins. There's no way they lose this round now.
Things up. 28 seconds left to go. That man wants the game for Wolves. He really is the shining light for them. Deadshot getting another, but it's unlikely to be enough at this point. 18 seconds, and he and Shinka need an absolute ton of kills here to close this one.
Yeah, man, he's retiring.
Brute force into Janitor, but the prone angle is there. Finds one, finds two. What is going on? Shinka finds one. 6 seconds left to go. This just became doable. Shinka, he's going to put the diffuser down. Is Deadshot on the cover? Who else? He closes it out with a triple.
Our final game of the day saw BDS win eventually 2-1 up against ITB, but ITB did manage to take one of the first maps 7-2 on border up against BDS. And I got a little bit carried away and once again celebrated too early, thinking ITB were going to go on to win the entire series. But BDS come out on top with ITB in second, and I'll play that clip for you now. I really need to stop celebrating too early in best of threes. I really need to learn my lesson.
Has got the right sort of idea. A nade coming on through. That should be enough here.
Wow, played, boys.
Wins it out. Look at him, calm, composed.
No reaction. No reaction. Hey, does a postman celebrate when he posts a letter? No! Does Oscar celebrate when he catches 1v1 against BDS, who top the EUL groups? No! From 1-7 loss to 6-1 up! Come on! So here we have the three teams making it to the Manchester Major from the EUL, minusing the LCQ team. You have ITB in second, BDS on top, and Secret in third. The best thing about this is ITB have 4 lads from the UK, BDS have 1 in Usis, and Secret have 1 in Adrian as well. So a lot of UK representation. The only thing that can make it even bigger is if we have Fnatic or G2 get there through the LCQ as well. But speaking of the LCQ, we'll take a quick look at which teams are in that, and we'll be competing for that final spot at the Manchester Major from EUL. So as you can see, Wolves dropped down to play up against Make Your Destiny. They're all French T2 sides, so a bit of a French derby there. Then you have ENCE up against Virtus Pro. Let's not forget that ENCE did beat Virtus Pro in that seeding match going into this as well in the Open Qualifiers Phase 2. Then you have Fnatic up against the Forgotten Days. The Forgotten Days have the likes of Hungary, YZN, all ex-pros playing on that team as well. And then you have Wild up against G2. I'd love to know who you think is going to make it. I did see on Twitter yesterday that Doki has dyed his hair blonde again for the LCQ buff. So let me know in the comments who you think is going to make it and be that 4th and final team coming in from the EUL. But I do just want to quickly look at one player who has really stood out this season inside of EUL. And that main man himself is Usis, the highest rated player with a plus 46 KD, coming into a new team as well. The one UK representative, BDS, and he is an absolute gunner, but he does have a stinker of a roast dinner, as I'll show you now. This is indeed the man who is the highest rated player inside of EUL, and this is what he has for a roast dinner at Christmas. Shameless, really. But anyway, we'll now zoom on over to Asia, where things are heating up as well. So here we have the Asia League, and it was going into their final play day, with a lot of these games just being played for seeding, apart from the likes of those at the bottom of the table, in the likes of Knock Knock, Hasib Warriors, and Daystar, and this is how the results rolled on in. We had Fury smashing out the Hisi Warriors, and then we had Knock Knock picking up one big point, which would secure them playoffs up against Galeda. Elevate had a shot loss to Direwolves, and Bleed looked ever so convincing once more with a 7-0 victory up against Daystar, which meant our table looked like this as the teams in the Asia League got locked in for the playoffs. So as you can see with the little arrows, the place is changing. You have Bleed going up to first in the table, Fury going up to second, Elevate dropping down from first to third, Galeda and Direwolves staying middle of the pack, and Knock Knock sneaking up into those playoff spots. But let's see how the initial stages of those playoffs went. So as you can see, it was Galeda going up against Direwolves and Elevate going up against Knock Knock. But how did those games finish, and who was going to take one step closer to going up against Bleed and Fury? Well, Direwolves got the job done, and they did it the hard way. They lost the first map 7-3 and then went on to win 7-4, 7-3, which meant they progressed through to the next stage of the playoffs. Elevate themselves did it in a much easier fashion. You've got to feel for Knock Knock, maybe just not being able to quite hang with the gunning of Elevate, losing 7-3, 7-1, which is actually going to start in about an hour's time, the next stage of these playoffs. But I'll be covering that and what happened in that in the next week's video. But these are the games that will be locked in to see the top 4 and who will progress through to the grand final for that one spot that Asia offers. There we have it. We have Fury up against Elevate. Let's not forget that the last time Fury and Elevate met, you did see Elevate lose 7-0. So I'm going to be cheering on the boys of Elevate because you've got some UK influence in over there. And then you've also got Bleed up against Direwolves. That will be played today. And then the winners will be going up against each other next week to see who gets that top spot and that spot in the Manchester Major. But now we're going to zoom over to LATAM region because the league has now finished and the playoffs have begun there as well. So over in LATAM, we had our final play days with 6 Karma winning 7-3 convincingly, Team Cruelty winning 7-1 convincingly, and Revan winning 7-2 convincingly, which locked in your top 4 teams of 6 Karma, NXT, Cruelty, and Revan. And now we'll take a quick look at the final play day in LATAM South as well to see which teams got locked in to the top 4 there also. So over in LATAM South, we had Knights up against Maycam Evolved. Both of those teams would be progressing through to the playoffs, with Alpha also progressing through with a 7-win victory up against Malavinas. And then the Vascos looking ever so impressive once more, securing their spot in the playoffs as well. And this is how the playoffs shaped up over in LATAM, because now these LATAM North and LATAM South will be combining to see which one team will be making it through to the Manchester Major. So this is how it shaped up, with Alpha up against Maycam Evolved, Revan up against NXT, and then the winners of those games would be going up against the Knights and 6 Karma. And this is how the results came in for all of those games for a spot to go up against the top of the tables that progressed from each of their regions as well. So we had Alpha Aeris managing to beat Maycam Evolved. This was just the best of one to start the day. Revan beating NXT. Knights then go on to win up against Alpha Aeris. I'm pronouncing that so wrong, sorry. And then 6 Karma. My boys at Revan, I was absolutely gutted. They won map 1, and I stayed up till about 3-4 in the morning watching this, and 6 Karma got the better of them, which was quite frankly absolutely gutting. But that did mean we had our final 4 teams locked in to see who would be battling it out to get that LATAM spot at the Manchester Major. So as you can see here, Team Cruelty will be going up against Knights. This is the first time that we see the mash of North versus South in the LATAM League, with the top side from LATAM North of Team Cruelty going up against the second seeded side of Knights in LATAM South. And then we had 6 Karma. They'll be going up against Vasco next week. There is a lower bracket in this one as well, which makes things a little bit interesting. So it's not all over if you lose this initial best of 3. But these games will be happening over the course of next week, when I can tell you who has now been locked in from the LATAM region to the Manchester Major. But that rounds up LATAM, as we'll take a quick look at NAL, who they had their LCQ this week. So now we zoom over to North America, where let's not forget that Dark Zero, M80 and Beast Coast already secured their spot at the Manchester Major. Here we have 4 teams battling it out to try and make it as that final team, joining the boys over in Manchester of Wildcard up against Sonics, Oxygen up against Space Station Gaming Academy, then Space Station Gaming up against Makers, god that was a mouthful, and then Luminosity up against Los Mangos. Nothing to do with Los, because Los are already got knocked out in the open quals for this, by the way, but we'll have a look at how our results came in over in the NAL LCQ. All of these games were indeed best of 3s as well, don't forget. So our first result that came in was no great surprise, I don't think. Oxygen, let's not forget, looked really, really impressive in the NAL Closed League, smashing out some of the weaker oppositions, and they continue to do this, the same thing in the LCQ, beating SSG Academy 2-0. And then your main man, Richie, Rexon, Sexy Rexy, walking along, singing our song. Walking in a Rex Wonderland, there's only one Sexy Rexy. Well, yeah, Sonics managed to get back to winning ways by beating Wildcard convincingly 2-0. Elsewhere, we had Luminosity just managed to get it through up against Los Mangos, with Los Mangos winning the first map on Clubhouse. But once again, a T1 side overcame T2 opposition, which then meant we had SSG coming out on top up against Makers. So your 4 teams going through to the semi-finals were indeed Luminosity, SSG, Sonics, and Oxygen. You would have Sonics going up against Oxygen, and then Luminosity going up against SSG. That will be happening tonight as well, I believe, in the semi-finals, with the next day having the grand finals to see which would be the final team making it through to Manchester from NAL. A very much shorter NAL segment this week, because it is only just 4 games being played, and they're all progressing through the LCQ for that final spot in Manchester. So now we zoom on over to Japan, where we saw a massive LCQ taking place. It's interesting to see these LCQs with a lower bracket run as well, which makes it pretty rather darn interesting. And what we saw here was it was pretty much getting through to the final. We saw Kintrophy and CAG making it all the way through to the final. I'm sorry, this is the only graphic I can really get my hands on. But Kintrophy managed to win Fathers back 2-0. They then went on to beat Exist, and then they went on to beat Vite as well, which meant they went up against CAG in the grand final, with Kintrophy having to play not only against Exist in a best of 3, Vite in a best of 3, and then CAG in a best of 3 in the grand final, as our winners of that best of 3 grand final. And our second and final team from Japan making it to the Manchester Major was the boys of CAG, which I know will make a lot of fans happy. There's a lot of like CAG memes going around. I know Whippet and Gibson will absolutely love it, because they have a flag that says CAG me daddy, so they'll be able to take that to the Manchester Major. But I sort of mentioned it a little bit earlier, and it's just one thing I wanted to bring up about all those games that poor old Kintrophy had to play. And here we have a tweet from Mr. Fresh on Desk himself, and it says, "You've got to feel for Kintrophy in Japan's LCQs. They played 99 rounds of Siege across 3 best of 3s in one day in their attempt to make the Manchester Major." And as you can see there, for context, Fnatic and VP both played the most rounds in the entirety of the EUL League, and they played 97, and that was across a 5-week period. So Kintrophy winning 2-1 against Exist, 2-1 against Vite, losing 2-1 up against CAG in the final, in the 99th round of Siege that they played in that day, just missing out. You've got to feel a little bit for Kintrophy. But as I said, CAG will be our final team making it through from the Japan region to the Manchester Major. So now we head on over to South Korea, who also found themselves in a similar situation to Japan, where they were playing through the LCQs to see who would be the second team from the region making it through to the Manchester Major. And as you can see, we have the results from the bracket here. We had FearX beating D+ Kia in the upper bracket final, which meant that D+ Kia would fall down to play up against WebL. WebL making the entire lower bracket run, as you can see there, but it meant that It meant WebL would be going up against D+ Kia in the loser bracket final, with the winner playing up against FearX to see who would be securing their spot at the Manchester Major. And well, here we have it. We see D+ Kia slamming out WebL, only to fall at the final hurdle once more, losing to FearX. FearX, who made it through the group stages of SI, managed to secure themselves a spot at the Manchester Major. So we will have PSG Talon and FearX representing South Korea over in the Manchester Major, as that brings the South Korean League to an end, and they'll be back in stage 2 for the Montreal Major. We now zoom on over to the Oceanic region, where the playoffs were coming to fruition. We had in our semi-finals Man LFO up against Odium, Bliss up against Antic, and then our 5th place playoff match of Panic up against Circular Spears. And we'll show you how those results came in now. Our first game saw Man LFO headed by Chef Jeff, hashtag Man in Manchester, winning 8-7, 7-5 up against Odium, in which was an insanely tightly contested game. And then our next semi-final was Bliss up against Antic. And this one was a little bit of an upset, with Bliss winning the first map 7-3, but then we saw Antic coming back ever so impressively to win 7-4, but then Bliss just blew away Antic in that third and final map 7-0, securing their spot up against Man LFO in the grand final for that one spot over in Manchester. Elsewhere, we saw Panic secure themselves 5th place and the SI points up against Circular Spears, winning 7-5, 7-5, which we went into our final day with Bliss going up against Man LFO for that spot at the Manchester Major. And there we have it, the boys of Bliss just overpowering Man LFO with a 7-1 victory and then a 7-5 victory against Man LFO on Clubhouse to secure their spot at the Manchester Major. And I've got a few crazy clips which I'm just going to let play out from my watch party of OCE. I honestly think it might be one of the most entertaining leagues I've ever watched. And the production and all the broadcasting stuff is fucking sick, cunt. Oh my god, kill me. But yeah, I'll let those clips play now. That's the crossfire.
Finally living up to his name with 3 kills in this round. He has killed some men. With 20 seconds left, Juicy and KM to push down one fish on goal. He hits him with the hip fire.
What is happening?
No! Time now with it all to do. Nitrocell, and that right there is
just done. I'm done.
Blown to
See you later. Fuck this shit.
By a man that's essentially a fish. Godlike and fish-like, fish-o guy. Down to that Nitrocell, down to 2 unwinnable in a 1 versus 1. Tui.
Wet on the vert.
Shot from above. 30 seconds to retake. Does he stick it? Pros sometimes fake and other times they do not. Winnables. Oh! Are you kidding me? What the fuck did I just say? Are you kidding? Match point Antic. And he's dropped the magic. What the frick? What the frick? Oh my. Gets off it. Noise made. Fisho. Well, this is really nicely done here from Frixel. He will never lose this, ever. It's impossible. Ah! Never mind. Why can't you just wait for the timer, dude? What are you doing? You've just made me look completely silly, but you make yourself look even sillier by not just waiting for the time! Oh my god!
He will never lose this. Famous last words, the commentator's curse.
My goodness,
Jesus. So now we head on over to the MENA region, which took a week off last week. and we have more results coming on in here. The two teams to look out for here are GK and Onyx, and these two went up against each other, with GK coming out 8-6 on top. And that was the results on the 17th of April, as we look into our penultimate play day and the results that went down in the MENA League as well. So once again, GK flawless so far in this stage. We saw Onyx Ravens winning 7-5 up against Dabble Esports as well. And you may ask yourself, what does that mean? When did the playoffs happen? Well, in the MENA League, there is no playoffs. It is quite simply who finishes top of the league at the end of the play days who will qualify for the Manchester Major. And I'll show you the table how it's looking now, and then we'll have a quick look at the final fixtures, because there is only one play day left in MENA. So as you can see here, it is a toss-up between Onyx Ravens and GK Esports. We have GK on 16 points and Onyx Ravens on 15 points. With these two having already played each other, Onyx are going to have to hope on GK slipping up. And GK, they've got it all in their own hands. All they need to do is win their final game of the season, which will secure them their spot at Manchester. And I'll show you which fixtures are being played in that league today. So we have GK going up against VSN and Onyx going up against Falcons. If I was a betting man, I'd probably say that Falcons, they'll give Onyx a little bit of a game, which might make it a struggle for Onyx. And GK, they look like they've got themselves 1 foot into Manchester already, because all they need to do is win their game, and they'll be the team from the MENA region representing at Manchester. So to summarize, we've got all our phase 2 teams locked in now, with the ITB, BDS and Secret from EUL, Beast Coast, Dark Zero and M80 from NAL, FaZe Clan, E1 and Furia from Brazil, Scars from Japan, PSG Talon from Korea, and Bliss from the Oceanic League as well. If you're wondering why there wasn't a Brazil roundup, it's because they were playing their open qualifiers and there was just so much to digest in there. It was like a Swiss format and everything, but all the teams have been confirmed for the Brazilian LCQ, but none of those games have been played as of yet. I will be rounding that up in next week's video, so don't worry, you BR fans, even though I now think it's time for EUL Siege to take over international events, but we'll see, I guess, at Manchester. And these are the teams that are also locked in for Manchester. So as you can see here, we have CAG coming through the Japan LCQ, FearX through the South Korean LCQ, with GK/Onyx coming through after their final play day. And so we have 5 teams left to confirm to Manchester, which will all be rounded up by this time next week, of the European LCQ, the North American LCQ, the Brazil LCQ, the LATAM playoffs, and then the Asia playoffs as well. But that brings us to the end of this week's video. I'm getting so bloody excited to get out to Manchester. I genuinely can't wait for it. It's going to be unreal. Let me know if you're going, and hopefully I'll see you there. But that's all for me today, and I will see you in the next video. And here's a little treat of Leon Gids just wasting some time and entertaining us in a technical pause from that G2 Fnatic 5th place game. But thank you very much. Hopefully see you in some of the watch parties over the up and coming week, because we're live with pretty much everything, and we'll be doing Manchester Major watch parties as well before I get out there myself. So see you soon, guys. Big love, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.